Radnor Township Shade Tree Commission meeting for April 2012. We have 8 items on the agenda this evening, and we'd like to start out with 1430 County Line Road.
Good evening. I'm Tom Bentley, and we have submitted a plan that you have. This you know the history. This is our 4th time in here, and we had to talk about maybe not doing compensatory for the 6-inch maples, the ones that were below 6-inch, and we got an email from you that said basically you want us to comply with the ordinance and replace those the Norway maples. We have a plan. You don't have it. You have the last plan that we submitted, which is it was the studies that we did on County Line Road for the for the large oak trees we were going to save. Mm-hmm. So basically, what we have tonight is a culmination of our original plan, which had 137 replacement trees, and then you asked us to go back and see if we could save some more of the mature trees. We did that plan on County Line Road, which you do have. This is the plan that we did. And we identified and measured and moved houses and moved driveways to get like another 20 trees on the front, which I think looks great. It looks much better than grading it out and putting new street trees in. So the 137 we reduced by 20 because we have these mature trees that are replacing the other trees. We then got the email from you that said that basically you want us to not have to count the 78 6-inch and lower Norway maples and compensate for them. And we now have a plan that adds another 78 trees to our site, which I'm going to give you right now.
Thank you.
And that's this plan right here. So basically, what we did is we went back and looked at the site, and the blue trees are the 78 added trees. The green trees are the original 137, which went down to 117. So we added 78 trees, and it's a combination of shade trees and evergreen trees. Mixture of evergreens along the Lancaster Avenue. We felt there were some gaps in our landscape berm, and that probably our future residents of Radnor Township would appreciate not seeing the trucks go by. So we added more. I think we're on 15-foot centers. Correct. We're on 15-foot centers for those the variety of the evergreens along the back. And what we did with the shade trees is we looked for places where number one, we had an opening and we didn't have a restriction with something else, and I tried to fill in the southwest direction from each house so that we could get a little shade in the afternoons when they mature. Now, the other thing we're going to do, as we've already told you, is we're going to try and save, if we're building a house and we find out we come into a situation where we have a mature tree, that we can build a little retaining wall and save it, like along our western border. There's a lot of trees there that are right along the property line. We're going to do everything we can to save those, and we're going to save the ones in the front. But I always try and save the mature trees if we can. So if we're building it and we find that we can save a mature tree, we're just going to save it. But we've pretty much counted that we're going to, to be conservative, that we're wiping out everything, and then we're putting in almost 200 new trees on a little over 4 acres. I think the two significant things are that we've done, which has been at your bequest, was really preserving the mature oak trees along County Line Road. And, with this latest request for the 78 trees, we really were able to beef up that berm, which makes both of our streetscapes, really look a lot nicer, and hopefully it'll add to the value in the township and the community.
Okay, if I'm reading this right, where you're gaining on your evergreen screen, you're using American holly, concolor fir, Norway spruce. Am I in the right camp there? Okay.
Do you have anything to add?
Just give my fellow commissioners a few minutes to.
Yeah, the other thing I might add is we did receive preliminary approval from the supervisors as well as the planning commission. So we got endorsed by them.
Okay,
too.
thank you.
Howard, just to clarify, were these extra trees, there's 78 extra trees on this plan that aren't on this plan? Right. They're all evergreens?
No,
Not all.
no, not all.
He said to the southwest corner of each property, they planted some additional shade trees. That's the larger blue dots.
The larger blue dots that you see around the houses
Oh, okay.
are what did you say,
Okay.
17? 17 of the 78.
Right, it looks like 195 trees are proposed, and 146 are the three species of Norway spruce, concolor fir, and American holly.
There's enough room for
I'd like to say I would do all this landscaping anyway, but I think it's, we probably would have come close, but it's a good plan. I think it's been a lot of work, but I think it's a good plan.
Okay. It appears we're all in conclusion that it is a good plan. So we approve it, and thank you for your
Okay,
patience.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excuse me, I just said...
Steve? Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I just had two concerns. Mr. Bentley, where the sanitary sewer easement is,
Yes.
that's your buffer plantings. I understand the full purpose of that. And perhaps the commission can help me. There's the laterals from the 4 houses that will go through there. My only concern is for in the future, if there's work that has to be done for the lateral, the homeowner will be digging up trees, or there could be root intrusion into the lateral. Is there a possibility to leave, and it's hard to tell because the icon for a tree is larger than the actual tree, but what kind of, if any, width can we leave for that sewer lateral?
We could try and leave a little slot there. I think first of all, the trees are going to be on the berm. I think the sewer line's going to be a lot deeper. I think the root intrusion's hard to imagine with an evergreen. But we could try and leave a little slot there. I think that the homeowners that they'd probably rather have the screen and worry about it later.
Well, that's the thing. I'm worried about down the road.
But it's
For
their,
one of our
it's their,
residents.
these are our sewers, they're not yours.
Correct. They're our residents.
Right.
They're their laterals.
Right.
I'm just trying to look out for them in the future so that they don't have to remove 3 trees should there be some reason if the sanitary sewer lateral's compromised.
Yeah, we will try and put it on a diagonal, so maybe, when you look straight back, you see
Right.
pine trees, but,
So you could stagger them.
yeah, stagger them, yeah.
And I guess my only other request is, Mr. Bentley received preliminary plan approval from the Board of Commissioners So this commission would grant preliminary approval, and he would return for final before he comes back to the board.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. 20 Meadowwood Road.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Springer. I'm a professional civil engineer, live and work in Radnor Township, and I'm representing John Goncher, the homeowner, and I've been helping him with his plans for remodeling his home. But additionally to the plan, we have a heritage tree that, if you look at the paper over here, it is this one right here. And sure. Perfect. The tree is right here. You can see that it's over top of the back left corner of the home. And if you were to go out onto the property, you would notice that the limbs of this tree extend over the back of the house where the children's bedrooms are. It is a 36-inch maple. I've measured it as well, and the surveyor has done the same. And we have 2 survey plans here and some photographs. As well, in your packet, there is a letter from Aerator, who is the company that would be removing the tree. And they have done a visual inspection and made some notes in the letter that state some of the reasons why they believe that this is a safety concern and a tree that should come down. We are asking to remove this tree not only because of a safety concern, but because of what it's doing to the foundation of the home. So regardless of any potential renovations, this tree is still an issue. And it is a silver maple, and it has brittle hardwood or brittle wood, and it is known to break, the roots are known to break foundations of homes anyway. And if you go to his home, you will see, for example, in this picture here, and as well, here's another picture, a few other ones, that show the cracking that is happening in the foundation on the side of the home where the tree is located. And these cracks, are very well from potential issues with tree growth underneath. So for those reasons, safety concern with children in the back bedroom, a tree that was topped at some point in time prior to the Gonchers being there, that was topped and has caused tree growth, superficial tree growth. So it's has a V trunk. So basically, we've got a tree that has the potential for a lot of branches to drop and to cause further damage to the tree, and it's a safety concern with 2 young children. And we're asking to remove that 1 tree. Additionally, the Gonchers have already planted 3 trees last year to compensate for this. They did 3 redwood trees toward the rear of the property, 2 along the stream and 1 in the back left corner. They are not shown on this plan because the surveyor did the major trees within 25 feet of potential construction, but they did have a contractor install them last year. So we are just asking if we could please have that tree removed by Aerator.
Is there anything else being done? It's just a tree removal, there's no construction going on, there's nothing else going on here? Is that correct?
We actually hope to present a construction plan in the near future. The plan would possibly have an addition off the side of the house, but this tree came before the construction did. In fact, one of the first things John and Linda told me is, we want to do a tree removal, but we know it requires a site plan. We might as well just put it all together, because if we do a construction and we are allowed to put any type of work on the side of the house there, it's going to impact it anyway. But the tree was an issue prior to any construction or drawing plans being done by myself.
And what I'm trying to establish is, are we making a decision on anything else? Do we need to review the plan, or we're only reviewing the taking down of this tree? Is that correct?
Just the taking down of the tree, that is
Okay.
correct. There's
Because
no review of plan.
Okay.
These
because
plans are
Otherwise,
preliminary.
the plan I can't read, but
It's
we
very
have a
small.
letter stating that the tree is a hazardous tree, and so from my standpoint, that is all right. I'll accept that from my point.
Yeah, I'm in concurrence. Silver maples are known for their problems, falling apart, so to speak.
That's fine. Do the trees that were planted prior to this count as tree plantings, or?
You said there was 3 redwoods?
Yes, he had a contractor plant 3 redwoods in the back of the yard last year in anticipation of this. But we also did show additional 3 trees to be planted as well, but we weren't sure if we had to do that, knowing that they had already planted 3 last year. They're 2.5 to 3 inches in diameter.
Okay, that was what I was asking.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So there'll be a total of 6 trees added, the 3 they've already added, plus 3 more they're talking about?
Well, we were only going to add the 3 others if we had to. We'd like to be able to use the ones before. They will be doing any additional planning around the house as they potentially make remodeling changes or updating around the yard and property. But if we don't have to do additional 3, we'd like to be able to have that in the money to be spent for other landscaping and be able to use the 3 trees before.
I think the 3 redwoods at the appropriate caliber would certainly count for the replacement of the 36-inch tree. And then again, whatever you do from here would be additional compensatory planting.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, 209 Atlee Road.
My name is Bernie Druding. My wife and I, Pam, live at 209 Atlee Road in Wayne. And we recently purchased the lot behind our backyard from our other neighbor, Laura Ferran, who lives at 528 West Wayne Avenue. On Monday, April 9th, I started to clear that lot and removed 8 trees and a large amount of previously fallen tree debris and some brush from the lot. At 3 o'clock, a township engineer came and informed me that I was removing the trees without a permit. We stopped work, and to be clear, I was aware of the ordinance where you could remove up to 6 trees, and I removed 8 and was intending to remove more. I don't have a good explanation for that, other than the fact that I did assume, since I'm going to point out that most of these trees were already dead, I didn't think I needed a permit. I was informed that I stand corrected, and since that time I've come in and made this application. So jumping the gun was my fault, and I apologize for that. Through the photos, I have some numbered photos and a plan. I'm going to attempt to illustrate what the lot was before April 9th and what remains today. So I'd like to pass up the photos. They're the same ones that I submitted, but I've marked them with numbers so I can pair them, and also have a letter from one of the neighbors. Okay, so the plan that's on the table shows that the 8 trees that we already removed on April 9th in red, and the remaining 8 trees are marked that we want to remove are marked in blue, and the only one remaining tree is a sweet gum, which is marked in green. It's on the back southeast corner of the lot. So looking at the plan, this is Let's see. The bottom of the page is West Wayne Avenue, and the lot that's adjacent to West Wayne Avenue is Miss Ferrand's lot, and the lot behind it is the subject lot, and my property is the property to the right of that.
Okay, so the, excuse me, the red trees are the, with the X's through are the ones you've already taken down?
Yes.
And the blue X's are the ones you're proposing to take down?
That's correct.
Yet, okay.
All right. Okay. Okay. If you were to look at the photographs that we have, the first one is the numbers are, excuse me, the letters are in a circle. If you look at photograph A, photograph A was taken on April 5th, a week before April 9th, and it shows the typical conditions southeast and in the front of the sweet gum tree. So if you look in the far right-hand corner of this photograph, that is the canopy of the sweet gum tree, and if you look at the photo behind it, which is A1, that is the same area being photographed from the same direction at the end of the day on April 9th when we did the clearing. And as you can see, we did remove a large tree that I will describe as decapitated. It's been that way for quite some time, and a lot of brush. And you can see the stump of that tree on the second one, A1, in front of the sweet gum tree.
So are you referring to a different photograph than you have shown that's on the
Yes.
screen? Okay, so in the photograph on the right, are any of the trees in that photograph ones that were taken down?
Yes.
And would you point to?
The one that was taken down?
Yes.
It's right in the middle of the photograph.
Okay, and then on the map, which tree is that?
Okay. I believe it's the 14-inch walnut in front of the sweet gum.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to put up photographs B and B1. Okay, the photograph on the left is taken the week before, and it shows a number of trees. This is looking towards the eastern edge of the property, right in the middle of the lot, and it shows a large clump tree that's got about 6 trunks growing out of one trunk, or one stump. And again, that tree was decapitated some time ago. I've lived in my house for 8 years. It's always been like that.
And on the map, which?
Yes.
Yep.
That would be the red tree in the middle of the lot marked 33-inch dead tree.
Okay.
All right. Also, when you look at photograph B, you can also see behind that multi-stemmed clump, there is a large tree, a healthy tree, relatively healthy tree, with a canopy to the left. And immediately to the right of that tree is another clump of trees that are decapitated. And I'm going to show you on the next photograph. The next photograph is after we removed, excuse me, it's right here. Photograph B1. Okay. So what you're looking at in photograph B1 is the April 9th cut-down stump of the stump cluster that we just spoke about, which would be the 33-inch dead tree. That's the stump in the foreground. Now, this photograph exposes the next clump, which is right behind that. This is a cluster of about 4 trunks, growing out of one stump, and they're leaning to the right, and they would be identified on the plan. Two dead trees behind the red 33-inch dead tree. And the large tree you see in the photograph to the left, that's leaning about 30 degrees to the left, is identified in blue on the plan as 18-inch tree.
And that's the one you said, described as with a canopy, and did you say it was a healthy tree?
It looks to be healthy to me. It's bloomed out. Mm-hmm.
But you're proposing to take it down?
Yes, I am, and there's a reason for that. From this photograph, you can see that it's listing a bit to the left. If I were to have rotated around more to the left and taken a photograph of it, it's fairly heavily towards the neighbor to the east backyard. And if I had taken a photo a little bit more to the left here, you would see another tree stump that's about 2 feet high. And that represents a tree that fell this past winter and crushed the next door neighbor's nice magnolia tree. And that tree was removed and the debris was thrown onto this lot. So it's my opinion that that tree is going to fall on the neighbor's property at some future point, and it doesn't make sense to me to leave that tree growing where it is. It's actually, if you look closely at B1, it's part of a cluster, again, of one stump with originally 3 trunks coming out of it. The middle trunk was broken off. The right trunk, you can see a vertical trunk that maybe goes up about 30 feet high, and then you can't see it in the photograph, but it hooks over like a big crane onto the neighbor's property. So I would be proposing to remove all of that tree material.
Don't mean to be argumentative, and I'm looking at your pictures and trying to get a handle on this, but also looking at what I'm looking at here is it's a little bit more explicit than pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I can say is your intent, and I read your letter prior to the meeting. You want to, I understand, you want to clean out the brush and get all that done. You're
Mm-hmm.
taking out dead trees, but from what I'm looking at in your plot plan, out of all the removals, there's 1 tree being left.
That's correct.
And everything else is going to be turned to, I think I read in your letter, grass areas?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And, okay, that's, to get an answer, then everything's being removed except 1 tree in
Yes.
this parcel.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And is there, I know the pictures are saying that, and I know from my past experience up here, the members of the commission like to hear a certified arborist saying that these trees are indeed dead.
Right.
More so than a picture, that there's no chance, they should be removed for various reasons.
Right.
Do we have any of that backup documentation?
We do not. We do not. So I'm relying on the pictures.
Would you give any consideration to what we ask other people who come before this commission in removing trees? And we've heard some in the past this evening, and I know people sitting out there in the audience will be asked to look at a replacement program for taking out. Have you given any consideration to that?
To compensatory, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. And do you have a plan for that you can share with
I
us
do. It's
tonight?
actually in the next set of
Oh, okay.
photos. So, yeah. Any other questions on B and B1? 2 more sets here. C. C1. So C is a before photo taken from my second floor window. Shows the same perspective as the prior B photographs. It also encompasses the a skip laurel hedge that runs along my property in this lot. And C1 shows at the end of the day on April 9th from the same window.
Okay, so to summarize, again, just about every tree here, other than the sweet gum, is being removed.
Yes. That's my request. And I have two more photographs
Okay.
showing trees. Okay, this would be labeled D and D1. Okay, D is a photograph before taken from the lot, looking to the north towards Mrs. Ferran's house, showing the black walnuts in that area. And D1 is a close-up on the day we were working there of a black walnut, and I believe that split didn't happen that day. That was a pre-existing condition, although it looks to me like there's some fresh wood in the split. And that's Mrs. Ferran's house in the background in her backyard. So,
And
Go
where are
ahead.
they on the map?
okay. Let's see if I can point. Right in here. This would be the north end of the lot. There are 3 blue trees marked. An 8-inch walnut, a 16-inch walnut, and a 24-inch walnut. I did not mark the smaller walnuts in the photo because they were less than 6 inches.
And then the split tree that which?
I believe that's the 24-inch walnut.
Okay, doesn't look like a walnut bark to me, but, yeah, it looks
Well,
like
that
black
could be,
locust, right, yep.
that could be my,
Okay.
yes. So to conclude this, my request would be to be allowed to finish the tree removal as we just discussed and clean up and reseed the lot. As compensatory planning for the 16 trees that would be removed, I would propose to relocate that skip laurel hedge that you see in photographs C and C1. The skip laurel is currently 7 feet high, and I've trimmed it back, so it's pretty vigorous. I would propose to relocate that from the, I guess it would be the south, no, it would be the west property line of this lot between this lot and my house, and move it to the north property line, where the skip laurel hedge would then be the buffer between Ms. Ferran's backyard and mine.
And so what would be the trees that you would be adding to replace these trees?
Well,
You're not calling the laurels trees, are you?
Well, I assume that they're evergreen trees, the way Leland cypresses or Norway spruce or that sort of thing would be. No, except
No.
we can't use the laurels. Then I would agree to plant 6 to 8 inch evergreen species of a choice of the commission along that property line. And it's got 80 feet, so I would think we could plant 20 trees in there. We can stagger them.
Okay. Jim Hegarty did not bring to your attention that you were removing more trees than you should have in accordance with the ordinance?
No, he didn't. I hired Jim through my landscaper, Tom Tomasco, and I met Jim the Friday before he had looked at the property and given me a price, and I met him the Friday before we started work. We didn't have any discussion to that effect.
Okay.
And frankly, I didn't even think to ask him if he was registered in the township. It turns out that he is. but we didn't have a discussion.
Okay. The fact that Doug Meter showed up on the scene, do we have record as to how that occurred?
There's a phone call to Mrs. Jones from a, correct.
Excuse me, you're saying altogether there's 16 trees being removed, and
Correct.
you're willing to plant how many back?
I think 20 would, if I did the count properly.
I don't believe your count is appropriate.
Well, I'm certainly willing to do whatever the appropriate count is.
How about instead of our taking time here, that he comes back with the list of trees taken down, put into the categories with what replacement needs to be with that, rather than our calculating that?
Yeah, in accord with that.
Okay. So it's my understanding it's up to 24 inches is 1-to-1? Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, it's 1-to-1 up to 20 inches, and then 2 trees up to 36, and then
Right.
1 beyond 36.
Okay. Well, I think there are 4 over 20 inches. So that would be 8, and plus 12 would be 20.
Okay, I'm trying to calculate on the spot.
And I apologize.
Yeah.
I did this quickly the next day, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish I had done the calculation, but I didn't do it on the plan.
Yeah, normally we see a graph or a
I
chart
understand.
that suggests what's coming
I'm
down,
certainly
what's
willing to-
caliber, and what's supposed to come back in.
I'm certainly willing to write it on the plan and give it to the staff.
Yeah, I would suggest you do that, and we make sure that your compensatory planting is appropriate. And I leave it up to the township staff regarding the neglect of obeying with the ordinance and any other input.
And I would, if the township is able to do any sort of penalty on Mr. Hegarty, I would suggest that as well. And then the list of trees, the township website lists trees that are
Species.
acceptable.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that we do that.
The only comment I would have concerning, I know leaving it up to the township, but as long as there's consistency in it, because you don't want to be precedent setting if you give a waiver here where there's a penalty, just like with a former applicant that was here this evening, asking for something, and we held to the standard, I think, with the silver maple, that we, even though it was a tree that was invasive, we were not willing to relent on that as part of that compensatory formula. So I think, since we're doing that for that individual, we should have to be consistent with everyone. So I'm not aware of whatever the township has done in the past, and I'm not willing to say we can give them a waiver, but whatever, I defer to their judgment, what they have done in the past.
Okay. That's up to, you and the township, I guess.
Might I suggest that the applicant return to the next meeting with a landscape plan in accordance with our ordinance, and then staff can review that at the date, the submission date, and give a determination, a recommendation to this board for penalty or not?
Yeah, no, I concur. I would also like to see some, and we do, and talking about being across the board, some large canopy trees included in your replanting scheme. That's a major driver in what we're here to do, is to preserve the large canopy in Radnor Township. So you're not just focusing on screening from your neighbor, you're also focusing on the overall canopy environment of Radnor Township.
Okay.
So if you need to go above and beyond your planting screen, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So it's my understanding that I will put a compensatory plan together with a calculation on this plan, and then list the new planting and an attempt to do over and above the screening due. Okay. I don't want to push the point. Just an observation. The screening is more of a neighbor-to-neighbor thing. It doesn't really solve the shade tree issue. And it's certainly more practical for me, and probably greener for me to pick up that screen and take it from one side of the property to the other, just as a practical matter. And if I come in with some shade trees, would you consider the screening in lieu of new trees? Because I'm going to move those anyway, but I don't have any other place to move them to. So it's just going to be more practical for me to move those. Am I confusing the issue here in what I'm asking? Or?
If the screening issue is yours, and if it helps you meet your compensatory planting, that's fine. But I think we would all recommend that you also include large canopy trees on the property.
I did hear that.
Okay.
Okay. But I guess initially, before we talked about the large canopy trees, I heard that, we can't use the skiplar. It's not one of your listed trees. So we need to use a tree that's on the approved list.
Right.
I guess I'm asking if we put in some canopy trees, could we possibly just move the skip laurel over there?
Count in the compensatory, I think
That's
you
my
made that
question.
point. It
Yeah.
doesn't
Right.
count.
Okay. All right.
So just so you don't spend a lot of time
That's-
planning that.
that's why I
And then
asked.
come back and we're going to
Right.
tell you, well, you didn't meet the
That's
requirement. So
why I asked the question.
No, but
Okay.
it's fine. You can go ahead and do that for your own privacy factor.
Right.
We can enter into that.
Right.
But you can't use that in
It's
your
compensatory.
formula.
Understand. Okay. All right. Okay.
I think I would be willing anyway, if you were looking at planting trees on your whole property as opposed to just this new area, if that makes any difference in it.
Right.
So if you feel there are too many trees going on this relatively smaller
Right.
portion, I would be willing, and I'm seeing the rest of the commissioners would be willing to accept that also. If you do not feel, we will want the full compensatory planting, and we would like some canopy trees with that. If you feel that there is no way you can do that on that property, then we'd at least listen to a proposal that you would be paying money to the township that would provide planting of those trees elsewhere.
Okay, I understand that.
so-
Yeah, frankly, I would be interested in putting some other canopy trees on other areas of my original lot. Unfortunately, that lot is 100 feet by 150 feet, and I don't have much room there because we've already planted it 8 years ago, so I just don't have the room. But I understand what you're suggesting. One last question. Between now and the time I come back next month with the compensatory plan, I assume that I should not remove the other 8 trees, and I should not do anything else on the lot until that time?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
recommend that.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. 295 South Ithan Avenue, Agnes Irwin School.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Kevin McCullough. I'm Director of Finance and Facilities at the Agnes Irwin School, and I am here tonight with Mara Baird to review with you the school's amended and proposed grading plan for the campus. And we have brought this back to Radnor Township as a result of the decision to install an artificial turf field running parallel to Ithan Avenue. I'll point to where that is so you can see it. In this location, it currently is a grass field and grass softball field. And our amended grading permit proposes to install an artificial turf field. In order to do that appropriately and to protect the investment in that field and its turf and the infill associated with that, there is proposed curbing and sidewalk that changes its original location slightly from the sidewalk being on the internal side of where the trees are located to being immediately adjacent to the curb, which would align with the shoulder. And so the curbing in the sidewalk as proposed would be consistent with and continue the line of pedestrian thoroughfare that was installed as part of phase 1 of this project in front of the middle and upper school and in front of the lower school last summer. Additionally, the school has submitted, as part of this, an amended stormwater development plan, which would allow for the collection, distribution, and retention of stormwater on Ithan immediately on the road side of that curbing. So what we have essentially is roadway, right-of-way, curb, sidewalk where the trees, those trees are the Acer rubrums currently exist, and then a new planting scheme that Mara has prepared for us, and I'd like her to review with you now.
Okay, so in essence, the existing trees along Ithan are going to be removed. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, currently there are 11 trees in that location. 8 of them are over 6 inch, 3 are under 6 inch, but we're proposing to replace all 11 with 2 to 2.5 to 3 inch caliper trees.
I looked at it, earlier, you're talking about how many trees?
11 trees.
And the largest is a 9-inch diameter?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And they're all red maples, Acer rubrum?
They're all red maples. They've been compromised to some degree by previous paving along the street, which severed their roots along the street side. We're proposing to replant with 2.5 to 3 inch caliper, Quercus fellis and Ulmus parvifolia, which is included in the original planting plan to the west, so there would be a continuous street tree planting of the 2 types of trees continued along the frontage of the property.
And do you feel those trees would do well there and the sufficient work will be done that the planting site will be good for those trees to succeed?
Yes, we are. When we were before you with the original application, we added notes requiring special attention to soil conditions, and we're going to continue to insist upon that in this next phase of construction.
Is there sidewalk detail, more detail in this, your planting area here? And I can't really see the
I don't have a copy of the engineering plan with me that shows the detail of the sidewalk.
I did not bring one either, but the sidewalk would be typical of what currently exists. I believe it's approximately a 4-foot wide sidewalk.
I'm just worried about where the tree locations are in proximity to the new sidewalk, how the planting pits are going to be arranged for the new trees that are going in.
I think, I believe we have about a 10-foot planting bay between the sidewalk and the edge of the field, and it would be a continuous planting bay.
Okay. It's under construction now, so I remember it dipped down before the grade
Correct.
was level and then it fell off. Is the whole field going to be up to, the new field is going to be up to street level now, or?
Part of the amended grading plan brings the field up, the field elevation higher, so it merges more logically and appropriately with the area where the trees will be. It won't be precise. It'll be a smaller, short drop off, but not anywhere what it is now.
So the trees will actually have more room than
Absolutely,
than presently
yeah.
in that planting area.
Sure.
Okay, and with the artificial turf field, there will be some sort of a concrete curb that contains that as well, and how deep does that run, approximately?
The details for that are still being developed, but typically that would be about a 12 to 18-inch depth on the curb. And the curb would be consistent with what the schools recently installed at Memorial Field, which would be flush with the artificial turf. So it would not have a raised lip on it. They'd merge together at the same elevation.
And you have no particular concerns of the tree root systems invading the structure, the infrastructure of the turf field? You have quite a bit of stone base for turf fields, right?
We do.
Just so we're clear, it's going to be a 10-foot wide planting area between the concrete walkway and the curb, the 3-foot curb.
Approximately, I don't have the exact dimension, but it's approximately 10 foot between the edge of the sidewalk and the edge of the concrete barrier at the edge of the artificial turf field.
With a slight slope from being high on the sidewalk down to the. What kind of slope are we? We're getting just a little tight here on room slope wise for the tree planting area.
I would hesitate to answer that with any precision this evening, but the intention is to bring the current elevation of the field considerably higher and in line with not exactly the same as the sidewalk and the tree line, but one that doesn't have that more severe drop-off as it currently does.
I can shed some light on that. If you look at the plans, if you don't, I could recommend, there's an inlet on, looking for the compass rose, on the upper right-hand corner of the page, top of grate at 396.25. If you look below that, you'll see a grade of 396. If you move to the next inlet, you'll see a top of grate of 394.55. And then you'll see a large contour of 394. And as you move down the page, the road's sloping. So on the other end of the field, there's another inlet at 391.80. And you can look for a contour over there. Just to give you an idea, it's within a few feet of the road.
Yes.
And that's the contour line, like say at the corner of the field is 394.7. That's at the far corner where that 396.25 is. There's
at the 396.25.
Can you see on the field?
Right. That's exactly.
So it's
there's spot elevations.
2 foot.
Right. So it's a couple feet, within a couple feet of the street.
My feeling on it is that there's enough, you're essentially making an urban situation there, but you're giving a fair amount of soil as long as you develop, as long as that 10-foot area that's going to have soil in it for the trees is not also the dumping ground for extra waste, but instead you use good soil, and I assume that'll be in the landscape architect's plans. But it seems to me that those trees have a good chance of surviving. That's my view.
Look at the application for grading permit, and again, maybe I'm reading it wrong. It says estimated cubic yards of dirt involved, 0. So they're saying that there's no fill involved here on this application. It says, I guess I'm trying to understand how you get 0 there if you know you're going to bring this up level, that there will be fill involved. Yes? No? Steve?
That may be because even though this is revised for the plantings, I know originally, I don't have the original plans in front of me,
Okay.
but that proposed field was going to be filled from stage 1. I know that that was coming up. We'll have to take a look to see why this is at 0, and if they're just talking, on the other plan, we knew this was being graded. I don't know if there has been an elevation change. We'll have to look at that.
Because that goes to Bill's question there about the quality of fill that's coming in. And it's saying here, will this fill be taken off site? And it says no. Well, okay, then you got to look into then, right?
Perhaps there will be a significant amount of excavation to build the infrastructural base for this turf field. And perhaps the soil that's coming from that area is being redistributed to the new area.
But there is still a requirement for a specific planting soil, which will be required beneath these trees.
But just as Bill noted, you're going to be creating basically a trough for all these trees to survive the rest of their lives, and it's going to be integral in their rate of survival for these plants to do well.
Yeah, I'm thinking the slope will actually help on that. And if it's done well, then and you're obviously spending a lot of money on this, and you want the trees to survive, and you've hired good counsel, so I'm counting on them designing it correctly. And then I think in the tree selection, I think those are good trees to use there, and ones that I'd love to see survive and do well.
There's no thought as to transplanting any of these trees or as viable anywhere else on campus, or they're just?
I think that the stress that these trees have experienced over time for a variety of reasons, but Mara noted the one, which was the improvement of the shoulder immediately adjacent to them, and the excavation required to do that, and then the addition of the modified base and the macadam, I think severely hampered their ability to thrive. I'd say additionally, and we are really hoping that the curbing that will be put in place that will prevent stormwater runoff from Mythen Avenue, including all the mineral and salt deposits that are used on the road, will redirect that water away from the trees, and they'll have a much better chance for thriving given that environment.
Okay, are we all in accord to approve it? Okay, thank you very much.
May I ask one other question?
Sure.
Recently, the school received from DuPont Corporation a notification and offer for claim settlement as part of a much larger claim that has been brought against them relative to various campuses, organizations, individuals whose trees have suffered because of imprellis applications onto turf in approximation to pine, spruce, and other varieties of conifers. The the DuPont folks, along with the school's turf management company, identified 2 trees on campus that they recommended for removal because of the severe impact that Imprellis had on them. One of them is what we've identified as an 8-inch caliper larch that is nested with a weeping willow close to our Arts and Science Center. But it is one that you may remember that you came out to visit the campus and inspected, and we made very specific recommendations for tree protection, which we've been observing. So we have, since obviously long after that point, following an inspection in November of 2011, received notification at the end of March 2012 that these were the recommendations that the DuPont Corporation, on behalf of those individuals and or organizations who had suffered tree damage, that they were going to take. So as part of their offer for settlement, and I understand that this is common across a number of individuals and organizations, they recommended removal of that 43-inch tall, 8-inch caliper larch, and one tree I believe they have misidentified as approximately a 67-foot juniper. We believe that's an eastern cedar. The one that or concerned about both of them, obviously, but the one in question that we have been protected, and if we were going to remove, we would probably do this summer and early this summer when there is work being performed in that general area for purposes of installing an fire access lane or emergency access lane. But prior to removing that tree or authorizing DuPont or anyone else to do that on behalf of the school and in settlement of this broader claim, I wanted to seek your counsel on that.
This is the first I've heard of that. You said that it affects larch and what else?
Well, our understanding, and we're obviously not expert on this, that it's had deleterious effects on spruce, pine, other conifers, and obviously in our case, the large cedar, which they call juniper, and our larch tree.
It's a huge problem right now. Howard. It started last year when this product was brought out, and there's the ramifications of it are throughout the country. So you just have to be one campus that they use it on, and it's unbelievable how bad.
Our understanding is that, and we have. I brought out separately Pat Hartman from Orator Tree Service, who is a certified arborist, to take a look at the larch. And I took pictures of them. I didn't bring them tonight, but just to, for our own purposes, to document what it hadn't done. At the same time, the willow next to it was, in full leaf for the season. And that wonderful kind of iridescence that the larch has doesn't have. So just, again, looking for your advice going forward on how to best approach the removal of these trees, because it's not, from what I understand, in their settlement offer, it's one that they have contracted with Davey Tree Service for purposes of removal. It's not one where I can separately contract to have it done and bring forward. So,
right, unless it's an ongoing arrangement with DuPont right now. They've contracted with Davey to do this removal work in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, a lot of different states. So unless you wanted to go into litigation with them and the contractor who put the material down, the label states you're not supposed to use it underneath the root zone of any of these evergreen trees on the label of the material. So there could be an application error or whatever had happened, but it's case by case. You can take what they're providing for you, or you can go further with a consulting arborist and stake your claim as far as what the value that you perceive the tree to be, and ask for that from them. It's going to be a huge litigation is going to go on for years and years about it.
A member of the DuPont inspection team, along with our turf management company did a survey of the entire campus of trees, and it came up with just those two that I've mentioned for purposes of removal, but, recommended intervention or feeding for a number of the other conifers, which do not seem to have suffered from it. But
Yeah, that was my first question is, is there any remedial correction? I mean, can you water the heck out of them and leach the particular chemical out of them? Or
They didn't want you to water them because the uptake, it increased the
Increases
uptake.
the
So
uptake,
that's why we
okay.
had so many problems with it last year, because of how much moisture we had. So,
in the fall.
yeah, so that's why it went rampant. So they do have a protocol set about what they want or not want you to do as far as try to remediate some of the
Right.
problems on some of the trees that may have partially being affected by the product.
Right. So prior to entering into any agreement to have DuPont or anyone remove the trees, I wanted to make sure that the commission was aware that this settlement offer has been made. One of those trees is clearly within the protection zone. The other one is very much right at the entrance to the lower school on the right off of
Is
Conestoga.
part of their compensation to the settlement to compensate you for the removed tree? Or are they
Absolutely.
just saying, we're just going to remove the tree?
Oh, no, there is a compensation agreement that pays, they contract for the removal service. They compensate the owner for the loss of the tree, and additionally provide remuneration for helping those trees that continue and prosper.
It would be interesting to see how they're going to compensate you for a tree that has matured for 15 years or 20 years. I assume they're not going to give you a sapling or something like that, correct?
Yeah,
No,
I would-
Did they share that with you yet, or no?
They leave the tree replacement to the owner.
No.
They simply provide compensation that they have measured against caliper and height. The
I
species
would
of tree.
recommend that you communicate to them that it needs to be in compliance with the Radnor Township shade tree ordinance.
And then the other thing is you'd probably like to have, you should have somebody identify the plant that they're calling a juniper to make sure that it is a juniper. Calling it a cedar doesn't clarify the issue. So, and that may become a more valuable tree for you, because but you might as well have it identified.
Okay, we've already done that casually, but I can do that more formally with a raider tree.
Okay, because, yeah, the name you listed is not a clarifying name, so.
Correct.
Yeah, you'd want to get the genus and species.
So recommendation on how to proceed with removal of the larch, which is in the tree protection zone, is the question I'm bringing forward for your council or thinking.
If indeed they're coming forward to say, we don't think there's any hope for your tree, and we're coming in to take it down, again, make sure that you've got the right species identified. But if they take down an 8-inch larch, they need to put, a 2.5 to 3-inch caliber tree back in. I would stipulate that.
Mm-hmm.
And for the quote-unquote juniper, how large did you say that one was?
They're claiming 67 feet.
How about caliber-wise?
They did not.
We'll find out what the caliber of that is. I would imagine it's going to be in the 24-inch range at least, which would require another 2 trees.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not a legal counsel, so I can't offer any more than
No,
that.
no, I'm not looking for that, simply that, if in fact it becomes advisable to remove the larch, and it is one that we have been protecting so far during the course of construction, the optimum time to do it would be at the point that the access lane adjacent to it is being installed, not at a later date, and certainly not before, because we have students and classes in session. But I just wanted to be forthright with letting you know that
Yep.
here is one tree within the tree protection area that we've received notification is dead.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with that. And if you can convince them to take it down at your convenience, I wish you the best.
We're going to try that, too.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is a reoccurring issue that keeps visiting us regularly, and that is discussion on unlicensed tree companies removing trees in Radnor Township. We recently had several properties in Radnor, one at Quintera and one at 510 Hillaire Road. The two different tree companies were unlicensed and proceeded to take down trees that should not have been taken down without approval of the commission. Related to that is discussion of unlicensed tree companies working in Radnor Township altogether. So I'm going to turn this over to Steve Norsenia initially to understand his view on these issues.
Thank you, sir. What I just wanted to do was let the Shade Tree Commission know that whenever this occurs, I will always copy you on the letter so you're aware of what tree services we are trying to bring into compliance. Of the three, Bryn Mawr Landscaping has complied, so they are now licensed with the township. Murphy's Tree Service and Rick's Tree Service have not responded, so we're going to give it 10 business days, and then we'll see what our next step can be as far as enforcement, or we'll be keeping an eye for both of those tree companies in the meantime, because we know they're not licensed. I just want to make this commission know we are actively trying to get these people to be licensed. We will follow up, and we will pursue this. And you should be aware, because of your position, of the tree companies out there. The biggest problem is when they're unlicensed, even though they should know about our ordinance, now they very well may not know about Radnor Shade Tree ordinance because they're not licensed and they're not given all the material. That's the biggest issue, so that we can try to avoid issues where violations occur, because the folks that do work here all the time are fully aware of the ordinance, and they comply, and they come in for permits, and it's not a problem. So that's the big issue of the unlicensed tree folks.
Other than chasing them after the fact, is there any merit in either prohibiting them from doing work in Radnor for a year or more, or simply fining them and then encouraging them to get on board the right way?
I think we should pursue both, and I'll speak to the manager and the solicitor about what we're legally able to do, but I think that would wake these tree companies up if they could no longer work in Radnor Township for a period of a year. That's going to affect their income, as well as a fine.
Okay.
Just an idea, Steve. How many would you say, a ballpark figure, are licensed arborist tree services that are licensed for Radnor Township?
I would have to find that for you. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, I guess
not
maybe
even
the
close.
reason I'm thinking, as a resident in the community, sometimes maybe awareness. Some community members may not be aware that there is such a thing as a licensed tree surgeon arborist, and if it's a reasonable number, maybe something like that could be published in the newsletter saying, just an FYI to community people, please only contract with licensed arborists in Radnor Township for your own protection and for...
It is for their own protection.
Yes.
Also because the proof of insurance, we do have a newsletter going out.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea.
Okay, just...
That we could do something.
It's in there, it's been in for the last two issues.
All the ones
No,
Well,
telling
that they-
the people,
yeah.
did you know that you need to have be licensed and to
but
hire?
oppose. And Sue's telling us, it does say that you have to be licensed, but
Licensed.
I like the idea of a list. I mean, you could,
If it's reasonable, you know.
we could
that,
say,
you know, if
we
it-
know these folks, we're not advertising, we
Yeah.
just know that these folks are licensed, and there's not a problem, but still ask
it's
whoever
been in
you're
there,
going to use.
yeah. That's just an idea.
There used to be a list posted on the Shade Tree website, and I think it listed 30 or 40 some odd tree companies that were licensed in Radnor. Perhaps we need to revisit that and update it.
We will have that updated and put on the website.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Item 7, discussion of work impacting trees, 260 Hilldale Road. There was a complaint of damaged trees. There's an attached inspection report that we have, and the plan and the picture, and apparently we have some conflicting evidence, if you want to call it that, between two different tree services. And I guess we're here to try to resolve that issue. So do we have anyone from the...
Mr. Paolino is here.
Okay, thank you.
Normally, when I'm before the board, it's presenting a plan. In this case, I'm sort of leaving it, I guess, to you because I was asked to come tonight because apparently the Shade Tree has received a letter or complaint and wants to discuss the issue, and I'm more than glad to discuss it with them.
Okay.
But it's not like one of my normal presentations, I guess.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I actually just started looking through what you have for the first time when I picked the packet up. So you're probably more familiar with what's in this than even me. I've seen some pictures.
Okay. In my review of this last night, the first thing that goes through my mind is that we have identified an independent consulting arborist to work with the Shade Tree Commission. And I would advise that we hire that independent consulting arborist to lend his views on this particular case.
I'm sorry, did you want me to?
You have public comment?
I do.
Okay.
I live next door, and the trees in question are two.
Introduce yourself and
I will. Thank
come
you.
up to the mic. Thanks.
I'm Barbara Suzanin. I live at 256 Hilldale Road, which is just left of the property as you face the house, the new house. I guess I have to say, first and foremost, I was here last year. There was a series of hemlock trees that divide the properties on their side, and the board approved the construction plans only if they moved the construction 5 feet more than the plans, and that was never done. So it's 20 feet from our property line, a big, huge house with those trees that were removed and the ones that are remaining. Does anybody know why? Like, I didn't follow the process, that it wouldn't have gone to the approved plan. It was subject to your approval. And,
Right. No, it should have complied with what we approved.
okay. The reason that you decided that, I think from that meeting, which is on YouTube, I watched it this morning, was there's an interconnected root system there of these hemlock trees, and we were concerned with all the construction and excavation and heavy equipment in and around there, which they would have to be, given it, the narrow space and the size of the house and the equipment that had to get in and out of the backyard and lay the foundation, that the trees were going to suffer. I'm not an arborist, but They look in really bad shape, and I'm worried that the interconnected roots, as well as the stress of what I did see, I'm a person that can see, incredible stress on those trees, and I have some pictures. The protective barriers were never, well, I can't say never, they often were not observed. They were often taken down, and then at the end of the night, maybe put back up. Most of the time, not. Most recently, they added some Bilco doors to the property for a basement. The basement was already complete. It was poured concrete. So they had a huge amount of stress on those trees because the two trees where they were in the middle of that was the Bilco doors, and they had to cut into the poured concrete with excavation equipment. And that was both on top of, right up to the base of the trees, as well as digging pretty close, to the tree roots themselves. So I'm really here because of the safety issue. They don't look like they're in good shape. They're split at the base into many parts, and for the most part, they lean over, especially this one, onto our roof line. It literally has growth onto our roof line, leaning over to our property, and no growth on their side. And it looks like, if you huffed and puffed, you could blow the thing down. And I'm worried. My son sleeps in that bedroom, and it's scary given the storms we had last summer. So I guess I also read the other, I had Mr. Ward come out and look at the trees. I know he's written a letter, but I also, for the first time tonight, saw the aerator letter. And I guess the thing that I would say to that is, if they were in bad shape, and they might have been, we all agreed last year that they probably could come back. They were needed, the trees there, because of the noise that the blue root gives. And, they were okay. They needed some TLC. Well, if we move the property line, the construction 5 feet towards the other direction, and not have stress on them, they'd be okay. So, to automatically assume that this was because of bug damage and other damage to the trees, well, that may be true. I'm not, again, and I'm not an arborist. However, I did observe the stress that they went through every day with the amount of construction equipment on them and no protective barrier observed. So I don't know if you want to look at my pictures. I don't know how this works. Put them down. That's cool.
Put them on the table so you can look at them correctly, and that'll show them.
Okay, that's one of the trees in questions that literally leans over our driveway towards the corner of our house. And there's a better shot of that.
Centered up there.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. So you can see. Then routinely, equipment was kept, stored up. When the protective barrier would go up, they stored heavy equipment there. And then when the Bilco doors were being built, you could see the excavation and the root system there. It was just, that was for the other tree that's farther towards the garage, not this tree or this tree. Our garage is right there too. I'm worried about that. It's a huge tree, the one closer to the garage. And if it were, again, it's split. You can see where it's split. If it comes down that way, it'd be in our house. It's very tight quarters. So I guess I would request that Mr. Paolino remove the trees so that the new owners can plant replacement trees, that will be viable in that space. And I don't know what the replacement plan is. I don't. Do I request that to see that? I don't know what the replacement, but I do know along that line there were no replacement trees planted. And I don't know if they plan to or not, but I'd hate to see this house settled and then a new owner come in. Hi, nice to meet you. Let's get into a fight about the tree that's, scaring me. I don't want to do that. Now's kind of the time to get some healthy trees in there. And it's really my position that the stress of the construction further damage the trees in that area.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you want these?
Not now.
Howard, I just want to clarify a couple things.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could we make a copy of those pictures?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Matt, a couple questions to clarify with you.
Yeah.
When we approved your plan, the Bilco doors weren't on the plan.
The Bilco doors, I believe, were out the back or somewhere else, right? They weren't where they're located now.
Right.
And that's correct.
When we approved the plan, where was the proposed, the storm water that came off the gutters?
In the same location. The stormwater pipe was put in prior to the relocation of the Bilco door. We didn't do anything different to relocate the Bilco door. Actually, they went in there with a little mini and dug it out. And then the Bilco door was a precast unit that was set from the front yard with a crane. The Bilco door actually sits quite far from the two trees. If, in fact, any damage was done to the tree root system, it would have been done from the installation of the pipe. I also have a letter from another arborist from Radnor. I made some copies for you. It's a second arborist who looked at it, and he concludes that maybe 10 to 15% of the roots, I'll give you copies of these, may have been damaged as a result of the pipe installation, which is hard to tell because the pipes, it is a small area, and we try to leave the trees, you know.
Well, I'm just confused because we didn't approve you putting in the Bilco doors. We didn't approve saving these trees with putting in the doors because you would have been into the root system of these trees.
The Bilco doors are sort of dead between the two trees.
Right.
In other words, any damage, the Bilco doors didn't cause any damage. If there was damage caused, it would have been through the other parts of the construction operation, the installation of the stormwater drainage pipes that run around the perimeter of the building, Jim.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. Did you alter the location of the pipes because of the Bilco
No,
doors?
that's what I'm saying. The pipes were installed probably 2 months before the doors went in.
And I'm just looking at the original plan that has the pipe against the side of the house there.
The pipe, it's shown closer to the house and is really
Right.
practical in putting it in when they were putting it in a machine. It needs to be.
I just want
About 8
to
foot
see if this is the correct placement of the pipe here.
Within,
4 feet.
without scaling it, I think it's probably more like 6 feet off the house,
Well, how far out do the Bilco doors stick out?
probably 5.
So you're,
The pipe fit, the Bilco doors fit between the pipe and the house. It's just you know what Bilco doors are, I don't have to explain
yeah,
it to
I
you.
just have a picture of it, but what I'm
Yeah.
envisioning is the pipe being parallel to the foundation of the house.
It
here.
is.
But now it's out 7 or 8 more feet.
It is out, it goes right, the Bilco doors just squeezed in. The pipe is down a couple feet. The Bilco doors are a sloping triangular-shaped
Right.
unit. So actually, when we excavated it, the pipe was already in, what I'm trying to say, and the Bilco doors almost sit over the pipe, if you can picture what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say to you is, damage that may have been done would have been a function of installing the pipe. The Bilco doors, if you were out there, are sort of midway between those two groups of trees. And that would not have caused the damage. But if there was damage caused, it could have very well been with the installation of the pipe because we are still relatively close to the trees.
But if that's the case, and you're saying that coulda, woulda, shoulda, the trees may be damaged, whether it's because of the Bilco doors or the pipe,
Right.
could be damaged. right?
They could be damaged.
Okay.
There's
And that
a tight
effect
space.
could have an effect on the lifespan of these trees.
I suppose it could, yes.
Well, therefore, I guess it goes to the point, we have to get definitive word, is the time, Jim was out there and looked at it, and he said they do pose a hazard.
Well, the hazard they pose may or may not be a function of this work. It could just be that they do lean. They leaned for the last
But
probably
we don't
5
know
to
that
6
for a
years.
fact. It could have, may have. been there.
Well, I mean, as a taxpayer of this township, I would rather see you not spend money on a third arborist, because I don't believe he could say anything any better than Jim says or any better than one of these other arborists says. He didn't see it happen, so he doesn't know what the real damage is. We're better off taking them down. I would take the trees down if that would make you happy or make you feel better or you think it's better. Personally, I'm against taking the trees down because I don't think they're going to die from that. But if it's something that, even if it's just something that makes a neighbor sleep better at night, I'm not opposed to that. They are not pretty trees. You can see in the picture. Well, we don't have the picture up there right now, but there's not much to the trees. They're pretty far along. If Mrs. Suzanne puts her picture back up, they're not the best looking of trees. I don't have a problem with taking them down. I wasn't asked to. We try to leave as many trees as we can. Would you mind sharing that picture again?
Sure. Which one?
So the one that
one?
shows the tree leaning over your property. Well, this picture is one of the trees, and you can't see it, but I could tell you that this tree here looks identical if you were to get further away. It's in the same stages of life, so they're not great-looking trees.
Yeah. So it looks to me from the photographs that the tree protection fence was down, at least in the times of the photographs. The one photograph with the pipes showing, the middle photograph with the blue pipes next to the wood fence, that's within the tree protection fence.
I do see that.
Okay.
The silt fence was never down, though. That was kind of, the tree protection fence I can see is down. I don't know if someone pulled it down, how it came down, but you can see nothing was, the work didn't encroach into the tree protection fence. Actually, it went up to the silt fence.
Not on that, not on that tree. But on
May
the
I
other
just
tree.
finish
Yeah,
my
this-
statement?
Yeah.
May I? Okay. So it is clear to me that the tree protection fence was not up the whole time. It was clear that some things were stored within the tree protection fence, which it's not, nothing is supposed to be stored there. There is to be no activity there. It's also clear that the pipe that was shown being much closer to the house in the plan that we approved was put much farther from the house and much closer to the trees. We also have an arborist report, Jim Ward, testifying that he observed these things, felt that there was definite root damage. From the photographs I can see, from the plan that I can do, I'm fully in agreement with the report that Ward Tree Service did, that these trees are damaged and that this was not followed the way it was supposed to be done in the plan. So I don't see there's a need to bring in a third arborist. I don't agree with a rater, but my impression is that a rater came in after the work was done and did not see photographs and did not see it under construction. So I don't think a rater knew what the situation was during construction. So in my case, I would agree that the trees should come down, and certainly compensatory trees planted. But this certainly disappoints me in your work as a contractor, which makes me question things when you come in the future, because you promised you would work this way, the way you were supposed to, and you did not.
I can take exception to what you're saying, but there's no point. I'm not sure how the fence came down. The person who complained, I have several letters. She's been complaining prior to our starting construction for the last year that it was not a buildable lot, and has written at least 3 different letters to the township requesting them stop our construction for a whole myriad of erroneous legal reasons, which the township denied. It is true. I can bring the
These comments are not going to change what I've just stated.
write letters,
I
but-
already, did you write them? Or?
The
point is, I agreed to take them down.
What I've
I
seen
agreed to take
is
them
my
down.
feeling. So it doesn't really matter those other situations. It doesn't matter whether somebody complained or not. What I've seen is that the work was not done the way it was promised to be done. And that's a disagreement with an agreement you made, and the trees have been damaged, and I'm very disappointed in that.
Well, like I said, I disagree with your take on it, but I did offer to remove the trees. So I feel like you want to chastise me for that, and I don't think it's proper. I'm not one of the people who came in here and took down 40 trees without having a permit. You're saying a pipe wasn't put in where it was. We're talking within a foot or so of where it may have been. We come in and ask you guys for permits, and we try to follow all your recommendations and leave trees up and follow the spirit of the ordinance. The way I'm interpreting your reaction is, in the future, we should just come in and ask to clear cut a lot and give compensatory plantings for everything, rather than leave ourselves open to that, because we do our best to save trees. We very rarely, you've probably never had anyone come back in the 20 years we've been building saying, boy, after they left, all the trees died. Now, we have a 20-foot area, we build a house, there's trees in between it, and could there be damage to the roots? I don't know, there could be. Mr. Ward didn't see damage. Yes, we can see some plastic pipe there. I'm not denying that, and it shouldn't be there. It happens. That's why sometimes we try to put other fencing up, but we actually put the wood fencing up to protect the neighbor's property, because we know this fence, the tree protection fence, comes down in time. We work with the neighbors. We work with people as best we can. You asked us to come here tonight, and you feel there was a problem with the tree. I said we would take the tree down. I don't feel you're wanting to lump me into a group of people who would just literally go and cut 15 or 20 trees down without asking permission, using unlicensed contractors and stuff like that. We should be talked to in the same way. We actually put protection up for the trees. We put escrow up in case we damage a tree, because the escrow is required, because there's a contemplation that trees could get damaged when we do this work. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. And so we provide escrow prior to starting work. And I think the attitude that I'm sensing is something different than that. I mean, we work in good faith. Could something get damaged? It could. Could someone have pulled the fence down? They could have. Could it have been our guys? They could have. I don't know. The silt fence was still up. The tree fence is down. There's no tire marks running around the trees, but, I don't know what happened. The trees are within 5 feet of our property line, which puts them within 12 or 13 feet of the house. You want between the house and that tree with a pipe. I don't care if you put the pipe in with a toothpick, you have to stay a couple feet away from the house. You're getting close to the roots of the trees. And in the future, I guess we'll have to be more proactive and request we take down more trees and give you, rather than, we'll take down a 14 or 16-inch tree and give you compensation. But I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think the best thing to do is leave mature trees as best we can. And when we definitely kill one, we should replace it. I think if it's marginal, it should stay. I don't know if this is marginal or not. I'm not an expert. 2 arborists think it's probably okay. Jim doesn't. Reasonable people disagree. My biggest concern is I would hate to see the tree fall on our house. I think the likelihood of it falling on our house would have nothing to do with construction. I think that tree leaned the way it leans for quite a long time. We're willing to take it down. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm boring you. But okay. Well, like I said, we work in a professional manner, and we came here tonight and offered what we, can do, and that's to take the trees down.
So resolution is that you are willing to take down the 2 hemlocks in question, is that, and?
We're willing to, yes.
Okay. And that would, you'd have to talk about compensatory trees?
I'm going to go back to my original statement and recommend that we pull in a third-party arborist and offer an objective view. I think there's some emotion flying here that arborist would not necessarily be involved in, and come back with an objective opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
we'll be more than happy to do that and bring in there, and as a recommendation too, to look at this and then make recommendation back to the commission at the next month's meeting in regards to this issue, if that would be acceptable to the commission on that.
One thing that the independent arborist should realize is that there were many plantings and hemlock trees there. They probably had more of an interconnected root structure. So to take away the big picture, to look at that one tree and be like, it was construction, it wasn't construction. Part of the stress of the construction, probably added to things, in my view. But whether or not they were not doing well on their own is impossible to know, because it was all cleared. There was, other things going on there, bushes and other hemlock trees, other mature trees. Also, there was a pine tree. Do you know that pine tree that's closer to the road?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we'll look at it in totality of the
Yeah,
whole item.
yeah,
And then to go by specifics, we'll look at the totality and talk to both parties as well.
Also check out that pine tree.
Well,
It's an
we'll-
8-foot pine. It's marked here, and that doesn't look
Okay.
like it's.
Yeah.
We'll look at all the
No,
items if we can.
Mr. Chairman, we just have one comment from our side, though. We are more than willing to take the trees down and give compensatory. The issue from our side is not will we or won't we do it, but rather we would like to complete the landscaping and get the lot stabilized, and we are days away from doing that. And we would prefer not to hold that up. In other words, like I said, on the likelihood reasonable people are going to disagree. If the neighbor's really concerned about the tree falling on our house, that concerns me more than anything from my side, and we're willing to take it down.
Okay. No, again, the independent consulting arborist does not have any specific affiliation with a tree company.
No, I know that.
And I think that that's the most objective way to go, and this person can read the landscape quite well, and we'll be able to pick up all the signals.
One last thing. It wouldn't have been so tight a space if it had been 25 feet from our property line, which is when I left the commission the last time, a year ago, the approval was based on. So,
Okay. Now, again, as the staff has said, that they'll take all these considerations in totality and consider them and in the most expeditious way as we can, and we'll go from there.
If one thing, if I could just say too, is I think that, the Shade Tree Commission works very hard at this and takes this seriously. And I think the issue is seems to become a problem here in the township with contractors taking trees down unlicensed, doing things that aren't according to plan. And I commend them for taking the position that they are, because this is an issue. And, you may take it personal or that, and I think it's not meant to be directed personally. But again, this is becoming more and more of a problem. And, when you look at things where, you look at tire tracks going direct, one of these pictures, it's right next to the tree. I mean, it's very clear that those are the types of items, and I think that's where the frustration comes in at. So, from our perspective, this is something that we're going to work on behalf of the commission here and get the information and do the analysis, and then make a recommendation back to them.
And one last thing I would like to say to clarify. Neighbors were concerned that the lot was too small, and that's our right as property owners to investigate that. And so letters were written to the township. So, of course, as property owners, I wrote letters, as did other neighbors. Thank you.
Okay. The next issue, number 8, is 115 Stratford Avenue, and we will be discussing a monetary penalty and compensatory plantings required. Okay, can you lead off and identify yourself?
I am Victor DiPaolo. I'm principal of DiPaolo Design and Planning. We're landscape architects and land planners. And we are here tonight working on the renovations and restoration of 115 Stratford Avenue, the former Chef Tell's and a San Francisco restaurant, I believe. The site, as you know, is located a block off of Lancaster Avenue on Stratford, and it occupies about 2 acres, with the building being situated in kind of the corner of the split between the, I think it's the CO and the R4 district. On the site, recently we were requested to incorporate a stormwater management basin, and I know that most, if not all of you, have been to the site to see it. This illustration just gives a concept of the stormwater basement, the stormwater management facilities, and the location of the buffer area that was being incorporated into the plan. The concept is to have 2 basins, a smaller one adjacent to the parking area that will pick up sheet drainage and get predominantly the most ordinary storms and extreme storm situations. There would be a pipe interconnecting those down to Basin B, which would connect into the storm sewer. The existing survey and existing conditions plan was prepared by Momini and identified the locations of all the trees that were on the site and those that will be impacted by the stormwater management facilities. We're kind of working backwards towards land development, unfortunately. It's a little atypical, but we think we've got it under control, and Mr. Luthra is working on plans for the interior of the building, and we will be doing work with upgrading the parking lot, et cetera, lighting plans, et cetera, stormwater management, and all of those issues. So the grading plan being done, which is depicted here, shows in the shaded area the 2 basins. You also note that we are reducing the amount of impervious coverage by clipping off the ends of the parking areas. We are in need of 66 parking spaces, and they are achieved. So we are actually reducing some of the impervious coverage, which may or may not be appropriate here, but eventually will. The basin area is removing 5 mulberry trees of sizes from 6 inches to 12 inches. And I believe with these plans, they are the only trees that are to be removed. It's also my understanding that there were some trees that were removed prior to the planning being done, and I'm sure that you're aware of that. In terms of compensatory planting, in the basin area, we will be incorporating 4 river birch as kind of accents for that. And then adjacent to the Basin A, which is the linear basin, we are creating another screen buffer that will help screen from the neighbors, and that will be a series of 10 arborvitae and 5 Norway spruce. So that is the landscape plan that is proposed for the grading area, screening area, etc. This gives an illustration of the finished product, shall we say, once the landscaping is incorporated. So with that, I'll open up for questions and comments.
Okay, the 10 arborvitae and the 5 Norway spruce, you feel will provide what I'm going to call instant buffer from the neighbors.
Most definitely. Against the
what
property.
size plants are you proposing?
The Norway spruce are 7 to 8 feet, and the arborvitae, the green giant arborvitae, also are 7 to 8 feet. The Betula nigra are multi-stem, 8 to 9 feet.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Just a couple things for the commission to address, if you would. There's the monetary penalty required for Mr. Luther for the trees that were illegally taken down. And then what I would also request is that this commission, at this point, not approve the landscape plan. The grading permit was submitted. We did ask Mr. Luther to do additional stormwater. In reading the engineer's comments, there was a concern with the zoning review of this permit. Permit has not been issued. So on the plan, as Mr. DiPaolo noted, there's parking areas to be removed. Based on our zoning officer's notes, the removal or reduction of parking spaces will impact the use of the building. So expansion of the building will require land development approval and a special exception, and land development approval and zoning redistricting needed prior to issuance at permits for building expansion. So building permits are needed for all the additions, and additional information on the proposed plants was requested by the zoning officer also. So at this time, I would request that the board table any action, thank you, on this plan until these are worked out from engineering and community development. But by all means, if you wish to determine the monetary penalty tonight, may be an appropriate time to do that.
The one point I want to bring up, Howard, is that earlier when it was stopped with the removal of trees that were not given permission, one of the reasons I understood from a historical perspective, those trees that were planted there were to provide a buffer, I think, for the near close by neighbors with traffic. What I'm looking at here on Windsor Avenue, I can see where you've planted the buffer by the basins and so on, and I have to agree with Steve with, you also have here proposed additions, and we don't know what that is. But along Windsor Avenue, and that's right next to the parking lot, would we be addressing that concern that was raised some time ago when the other owners had this property with traffic and headlights in the evening and so on with homes? Because I see, just 1, 2, 3 trees proposed right there with the bulk of the parking being open. So
You bring up a valid point. If this goes to subdivision and land development, buffer plantings are required. It could really change the whole scope of this plan. And you're right on line with those concerns.
And the other thought that came into my mind is your parking lot itself is not in compliance with the ordinance. And the fact that you are changing it opens it up for review to such that it would comply to, there's got to be a shade tree for every 12 spaces.
Can I try to address some of these questions or concerns? In terms of the, quote, additions that are being incorporated, we have an enclosed elevator that shows at the crotch of the building in the shaded area facing the parking lot. And the other proposed addition is in a deck area that will be outside, and I don't believe that has been approved nor suggested to be incorporated. Now, I think that you have gone to zoning?
Yes.
For the elevator?
Yes.
And you've gotten that approval recently?
Yes.
Okay. So they have gone to zoning for approval of the elevator, is that correct? Okay. In terms of let's address the parking area, and am I to understand that the reduction of parking, the removal of asphalt has an impact, or are we saying that the lack of one planting island every 12 spaces has an impact?
The note was removal and or reduction of parking will impact the use of the building.
It's my understanding, and maybe Mr. Luther can correct me, that at his recent zoning meeting, 66 parking spaces were required, and 66 spaces are the number of spaces that are available or proposed.
That would be based on, what's the
A
occupancy?
restaurant use with
183 seats.
Right. And that also,
limited to 183 spaces.
but that included a banquet facility, was the
Yes.
testimony was, so now that calculation has to be factored in. But also, too, what's interesting now is this deck idea was not mentioned at the zoning
there is
hearing
no
board.
deck. This was, I think the picture is old.
This was a
No.
preliminary idea,
So-
so the deck is
There
not
is no deck.
proposed.
So there's no deck?
No, there
But
is
you
no.
mentioned a deck, though, just
I did.
before. Right.
Because it was something thought about previously, but is not part of this application.
Again, I think all the plans need to be cleaned up, to be on the same page with what went to the zoning hearing board and what's going for the grading permit, because at one point, these all come together, and if we have conflicting plans that shows the deck, the proposed addition, it'd be very hard for staff to move forward on this.
Okay, well, I'm going to take your recommendation that we table it until you have all your facts and figures in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Now, can I ask another question, if I may? So if we come in with a complete land development package, which it seems that's what's being required, just to talk about the parking spots, the fact that we have an existing non-conforming use, does that impact?
What I would suggest, Mr. DiPaolo, is to come in and speak to Kevin Kashansky and David Lay. Kevin Kashansky is our Community Development Director. Dave Lay is our Township Engineer. Both at the same time to get all this done at one time. I'm not saying that you have to do that. They were some of the notes noted, but I think everything could be worked out with both parties, yourself and Mr. Luther in the room, and get a comprehensive permit plan prepared and move forward accordingly.
That sounds prudent. Okay, thank you, Steve.
Okay.
I have some questions, please. These parking spaces which shown here that they are removed, they were in the last zoning hearing, which was in 2010. It was required to remove these corners, 6 parking spaces. So that's why we complied with that. Because it was in 2010 zoning hearing.
Mr. Luther, I'm not here to contest or determine anything about zoning. This is Shade Tree Commission, but unfortunately, on your grading permit, which includes your landscape plan, there is concern. So I can't answer any of your questions regarding zoning or past zoning hearing board decisions. I really suggest that you come in and talk with staff and get all this ironed out and move forward appropriately. And I think it'll be a much better process altogether. We have too many bits and pieces of different plans and information here. We need one comprehensive plan that you can move forward with, whether saldo is required or not, and go from there.
I have, the main concern is that from the last letter from the township solicitor, that all the work should be stopped. And because of this letter, I'm not getting any financing from my bank. And unless the Shade Tree approves or just tells me that, okay, as per the previous approval from 2010, which I can start the renovation, which was agreed last time in the last meeting that I can start the renovation. If I cannot get this approval from you that I can go ahead, I'm not able to pay for anything because the bank is saying that this work is stopped by the township. So I want to clarify this point that how long it's going to be stopped,
Mr. Chairman, what I'd say is this is not a shade tree issue. That's an issue between your attorney and the township solicitor. It is not, this falls outside the purview of the Shade Tree Commission.
We will take your advice, and we will meet with the township and move forward accordingly. Thank you, Shade Tree.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have several other new business items. I'm sorry to drag this out further, but the Valley Forge Military Academy, in essence, removed 5 trees yesterday. along Eagle Road. They've had some serious hazards involved with them over time. The one thing I don't see on here is their caliber, but they look to me as though they were all within the heritage tree realm. Do we have any further information from Valley Forge as to just what their diameter was?
The report from the arborist is coming tomorrow. You'll all
Okay.
get a copy of it.
Okay, well, then we honestly can't make any sound decisions without that information. And lastly, we have a letter from Shriner Tree regarding a cedar tree that is considered to be hazardous by Shriner at nursery school in Wayne. And the question is this tree really hazardous or not? I'm recommending again that we use a third-party arborist to go out and resolve this issue. I mean, the plea has been coming to the Shade Tree Commission to, please make a recommendation as to whether it's hazardous or not. The ordinance suggests that it's either members of the Shade Tree Commission or those that the Shade Tree Commission delegates. And I would delegate this to a third-party arborist.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll do that along with the other one. Bring in third-party arborist, and we'll take care of both of those issues at one fell swoop.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, and last but not least, a revised ordinance has been compiled of the Shade Tree Ordinance and was presented to the Board of Commissioners just this week, and the Board of Commissioners have recommended that it be reviewed first by the Environmental Action Committee and the Planning Commission for their input, and then it will go back to the Board of Commissioners. So we are making progress.
Mr. Chairman, also, I would just like to put to the commission, Brenda Gatanda of the
Environmental, right? Mm-hmm.
would request that perhaps a member of the Shade Tree Commission attend the May meeting to discuss this with them.
Okay.
If someone is available, that
Okay.
would be great. And I could just email that someone will come, or if you are able.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other business? Okay, thank you very much.
Happy Arbor Day.
Thank you.
That too, tomorrow.
That's right.